Welcome to the AI Chat Podcast. I'm your host, Jaden Schaefer. Every day we break down breaking AI news stories and explain their implications in your life and in business. I need to ask you for a big favor. Believe it or not, we have around 92,000 people that listen to this podcast every month, which is absolutely amazing. But when you go to our Apple Podcast or Spotify pages, we only have around 110 reviews total. If you could do me a massive favor and give this podcast a review, I would be super, super grateful. Every time I contact an incredible founder or CEO in AI, they look at the podcast, they look at how many reviews I have, and that helps me to get better guests on the show. So if you could do a huge favor to myself and also yourself, go to the Apple Podcast or the Spotify page, wherever you listen to this, and give a review of the show. If you've noticed lately, I've been doing interviews with some really phenomenal CEOs. I have some more amazing ones coming up in the coming weeks with some CEOs that have raised hundreds of millions of dollars for their AI startups. I want to bring these to you and I want to get more of those. So please drop a review, go to your wife's account, go to your husband's account, go to your kid's account and leave a review. I don't care. Help us get more reviews, and I promise I will help bring some amazing AI entrepreneurs and guests onto the show. Have you ever wanted to start your own podcast? I record and publish podcasts on a platform called Spotify for Podcasters, and I absolutely love it. Essentially, you can upload from your phone or computer, and it distributes to every platform that plays podcasts. They support video podcasts, and you can make money on the platform with ads or even podcast subscriptions, something that has made my life so much easier as a podcaster. So if you're interested, I highly recommend you give it a try. You can download the Spotify for Podcast app or go to spotify.com/podcasters to get started on your podcast today. The AI chip company Tenstorrent just grabbed a $100 million investment from Samsung and also from Hyundai. So today on the podcast, we're going to be talking about where we see the AI chip industry, why we think this is important, and what specifically Tenstorrent is planning on doing. So I think going from a bit of a general perspective, the world of AI hardware is really, really hot right now. The appetite for these cutting edge chips is absolutely insane to the point where there isn't enough supply to meet the demand. We see this with shortages of NVIDIA's, all of their chips really, but their A100s, their H100s, everything is sold out. People are trying to get their hands on these things. So analysts are forecasting some big numbers, and startups are starting to kind of grapple with the industry giants and making sure that they can actually get the hardware that they need. But here's kind of the latest on what is happening in the industry. So according to McKinsey, by 2025, AI chips might account for up to 20% of the massive $450 billion total semiconductor market. So to kind of put that into perspective, Insight Partners have projected that sales of AI chips are going to soar by $83 billion, which is absolutely incredible. And this is going to happen by 2027. And that's from right now, $5.7 billion, or I guess that was actually back in 2018. But, $5.7 billion 2018 up to $83 billion in 2027. That's an absolutely amazing, over 10x in under 10 years. So I think this is going to be growing at a compound annual growth rate of 35%. This is nearly a tenfold jump compared to the forecasted growth rate for non-AI chips. And I think this really shows you just how hot the whole AI industry is in general. So a big example of this right now, as we mentioned today, is Tenstorrent. This is an AI hardware startup. It's led by the engineer Jim Keller. And they recently announced the raise of this $100 million in a convertible note funding round. And this was done by Hyundai Motor Group and Samsung Catalyst Fund. So of this entire $100 million, $50 million has come from Hyundai's car-making units, Hyundai Motors and Kia. And they're planning to partner with Tenstorrent essentially to craft CPUs and AI coprocessors specifically for future mobility vehicles and robots. To be honest, I always think this is a great play when startups are specifically partnering with enterprises to build out a specific product, right? Hyundai gives them $50 million and they're going to be able to build chips that are going into Hyundai's cars. This is a win-win situation for both, and Tenstorrent gets the money they need and also, the funds to kind of further their company. So I think the remaining $50 million was funded by Samsung, Catalyst, and other VCs like Fidelity Ventures, Eclipse Ventures, Epic Capital, and also Maverick Capital. So in the tech financing world, unlike, equity, a convertible note essentially represents a short-term debt that later converts into equity upon a predetermined event. So in this case, Tenstorrent's reasoning for choosing debt over equity, that they have not actually released, so we're not exactly sure why they've done that. But the company's post-money valuation was also something that they were asked about, but they've also not disclosed that. So we're not exactly sure how this changes the valuation of the company, and we're not exactly sure why they chose this specifically. But we do know that Tenstorrent described this as an up round, so allegedly their valuation has grown. I feel like, I could be wrong here, but I feel like they typically will do this when it's an up round, but it's not a big up round, right? They don't really want to announce that, over the last number of months or years, we've only grown this much. I think this is kind of a tricky time, right? Because if anyone raised money back in 2021, they really had to push and see a lot of growth in order to get any sort of increase in valuation to this year, because we've just seen the markets hammered so much in early stage, or just in any startups, even in growth stage startups. So previously, they raised $200 million at a valuation that was over $2 billion. So I'll be curious to see whenever this does come out, if they were able to push it much further than that. So Keller plans to utilize the new funds, which is around, $334 million to date. That's how much they've raised total. And he's planning on using the new funds for product development and enhancing their machine learning software roadmap. So they were actually founded back in 2016 by ex-AMD engineers and designers, and they're actually based out of Toronto. So they have been a player in the AI processing market for quite some time. They have their hands in everything from processors and AI software solutions to IP around RISC-V, which is the open source instruction set architecture. And their whole kind of story of their company includes the development of Grayskull, which is an all-in-one system designed for AI model training, and a shift in focus towards kind of licensing and services. Adapting to pressure from larger players is something that they've definitely had to deal with in this entire AI boom. But last year, they saw the launch of Dead Cloud, which was a service allowing developers to run AI models without buying hardware upfront. So more recently, Tenstorrent partnered with India's Bodhi Computing and LG to build its products into servers and also automotive devices. So with this really ambitious move, they've made recently some big ones like opening a Tokyo office. And the question kind of, is being asked by a lot of people, which is, can Tenstorrent compete with the heavyweights like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, NVIDIA? And NVIDIA briefly, right, as we know, touched $1 trillion mark this year. So obviously this is a big company, and they're kind of, they're putting their gloves on and getting in the ring with some of these really, really big power players. The question that we're asking is, are they going to be able to compete with them? Because it would appear like typically this is a very tall task. It's very hard to do. But with the demand for GPUs and for essentially just doing all this AI training, I think there is, the possibility that they can compete, but other companies have faced challenges with AI chip makers. Graphcore reportedly lost $1 billion in valuation. Habana Labs, which is the Intel-owned firm, they laid off, 10% of their staff. So I think kind of adding to the entire intricate landscape of, everything that's going on is a component shortage that's also happening for AI chips. And so I think the story of the AI chip market is far from over. I think time, as the wise always say, will reveal the victors in this kind of thriving and really highly competitive space. But for now, Tenstorrent and others like it are really vying for their place at the forefront of innovation. I think they're seeking to reshape technology that we're seeing in our lives every day. And honestly, I think that this, this round of $100 million, and specifically their partnerships with, Kia and with Hyundai to actually get this technology implemented into vehicles, I think is going to make them a really formidable opponent. I think that this gives them a lot of hope and a lot of chance to really fight in this industry that is growing very, very rapidly.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. That's the sound of switching your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling. Harness the best converting checkout and same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Stop leaving sales on the table. Discover why millions trust Shopify to build, grow, and run their business. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech23.
Thank you for listening to the AI Chat podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, I'd appreciate it if you rate us wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you're looking for an innovative group of AI enthusiasts, make sure to check out our Discord channel and Facebook community. It's obviously a lot more interactive than a podcast where we can share software, tools, and prompts we're using in AI every day. I'll leave a link for those in the description below.